Welcome to the School of the Lost Tribes. It is also found in the records that Jeremy the prophet commanded them that were carried away to take of the fire, as it hath been signified, to ancient records that describe an important event in Judean history. According to these records, the prophet Jeremiah gave specific instructions to those who were being exiled from their homeland. Jeremiah, known for his wisdom and foresight, recognized the gravity of the situation as the people were forced to leave their land. He understood that in the chaos and distress of exile, there was a risk of losing important religious artifacts and forgetting sacred traditions. To prevent this, Jeremiah took action. He instructed the exiles to take the fire from the altar with them. This wasn't ordinary fire, but the sacred fire used in temple rituals. By preserving this fire, Jeremiah aimed to maintain a connection between the exiles and their religious practices, even in a foreign land. This verse sets the stage for a narrative about preserving religious identity and tradition in the face of adversity. It highlights the importance of maintaining cultural and spiritual links during times of upheaval and displacement. Take of the fire. This phrase likely refers to preserving the sacred fire from the altar of the temple. Historically, this sacred fire was kept burning continuously on the altar in Jerusalem, Leviticus 6:12-13. When the Babylonians destroyed the temple, the priests would have attempted to preserve the holy fire. A connection to Israel's past. This act of preserving fire recalls the time of the wilderness tabernacle, where the fire on the altar was never to be extinguished. And how that the prophet, having given them the law, charged them not to forget the commandments of the Lord, and that they should not err in their minds when they see images of silver and gold with their ornaments. Jeremiah's instructions to the exiles. This verse reveals more specific details about what the prophet told the people to do as they were being forced from their homeland. According to the records, Jeremiah gave the exiles the law. This wasn't just any law, but likely refers to the Torah, the most sacred text in Judaism. By entrusting them with the law, Jeremiah ensured that the exiles would have guidance and a moral compass in their new, unfamiliar surroundings. But Jeremiah's instructions went beyond just preserving the law. He also warned the exiles against a specific temptation they might face in their new lands. He commanded them not to forget the precepts of the Lord. In other words, he urged them to remain faithful to their religious teachings and practices, even when surrounded by different cultures and belief systems. Moreover, Jeremiah cautioned them about the allure of foreign idols. He knew that in their new environment, the exiles would encounter various forms of idol worship. He warned them not to be led astray by the sight of gold and silver statues. These idols, despite their shiny and attractive appearance, were not to be worshipped or even admired. This verse underscores the prophet's efforts to preserve not just the physical artifacts of Judean faith, but also its spiritual essence and moral teachings in the face of exile and potential cultural assimilation. And with other such speeches exhorted he them that the law should not depart from their hearts. Jeremiah's actions and instructions to the exiles. In this verse, we learn about another significant item that Jeremiah sought to protect during the exile. According to the records, Jeremiah, following divine guidance, commanded that the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant accompany him. The tabernacle was the portable sanctuary used by the Judeans during their wilderness wanderings, while the Ark of the Covenant was the sacred chest containing the tablets of the 10 Commandments. Jeremiah then took these holy objects to the mountain where Moses had once ascended and seen the inheritance of God. This likely refers to Mount Nebo, where tradition holds that Moses viewed the promised land before his death. Upon reaching this mountain, Jeremiah found a cave-like room. He carefully placed the tabernacle, the ark, and the altar of incense inside this natural chamber. After depositing these sacred items, he took steps to conceal the cave's entrance, effectively hiding these important religious artifacts. This action by Jeremiah demonstrates his commitment to preserving the most sacred elements of Judean worship during a time of crisis. By hiding these objects, he ensured that they would not be desecrated or destroyed by foreign powers, and perhaps hoped they could be recovered in the future when the people returned from exile. It was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of God, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him as he went forth into the mountain where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God. As Jeremiah was concealing the sacred objects in the cave, some of those who were with him approached, intending to mark the spot or perhaps assist in hiding the items. However, Jeremiah noticed their approach and intervened. The prophet admonished them, declaring that the location must remain unknown. He stated that the place would remain hidden and undiscovered until a future time when God would gather his people together again and show mercy to them. This verse suggests that Jeremiah foresaw a time when the exiled Judeans would be allowed to return to their homeland. He believed that at this future moment of divine favor and reconciliation, God would reveal the location of these hidden sacred objects. Jeremiah's actions and words in this verse demonstrate his role not just as a preserver of sacred items, but also as a prophet looking ahead to a time of restoration. His decision to keep the location secret underscores the importance of these objects and the belief that their rediscovery would be a sign of God's renewed favor towards his people. And when Jeremy came thither, he found an hollow cave, wherein he laid the tabernacle, and the ark, and the altar of incense, and so stopped the door. And some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it. 2 Maccabees 2:5-6 together recount significant events from the time of Moses, drawing parallels to the current situation with Jeremiah and the exiles. The passage begins by recalling how Moses, through divine revelation, was able to bring forth remarkable signs and wonders. It specifically mentions that Moses prayed, and in response to his prayer, fire came down from heaven. This fire then consumed the sacrifices that had been prepared on the altar. The narrative then continues to describe another important event from Moses' time. It recounts how Solomon also prayed, and in response to his prayer, fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifices. This event likely refers to the dedication of the first temple built by Solomon, as described in 2 Chronicles 7:1. These verses serve multiple purposes in the larger narrative. 1. They establish a connection between Moses and Solomon, 2 pivotal figures in Judean history, and Jeremiah, who is now acting to preserve sacred objects and traditions. 2. They remind the readers of God's power to intervene miraculously in history, as demonstrated in both Moses's and Solomon's times. 3. They emphasize the importance of prayer in invoking divine intervention. 4. The repeated motif of heavenly fire consuming sacrifices underscores the significance of the sacred fire that Jeremiah instructed the exiles to preserve. By recalling these events, the author reinforces the idea that God's power and presence, as manifested through fire, have been crucial elements in Judean religious history across different eras. This connection helps to emphasize the importance of preserving the sacred fire and other religious objects during the exile, linking the current crisis to the grand narrative of Judean faith and history. which when Jeremy perceived, he blamed them, saying, As for that place, it shall be unknown until the time that God gather his people again together, and receive them unto mercy. This verse describes how Jeremiah the prophet hid the Ark of the Covenant, the tabernacle, and the altar of incense in a cave before the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem. Jeremiah did this to protect these sacred items from being taken by the Babylonians. He sealed the entrance to the cave, intending for these holy objects to remain hidden until the Most High revealed their location again. This aligns with the theme of preserving Israelite heritage, even in times of foreign oppression, as seen throughout 2 Maccabees, which focuses on the struggle to maintain Israelite faith and customs. Then shall the Lord show them these things, and the glory of the Lord shall appear, and the cloud also, as it was showed under Moses, and as when Solomon desired that the place might be honorably sanctified. It was also declared that he, being wise, offered the sacrifice of dedication and of the finishing of the temple. Verse 8. This verse refers to Solomon's actions during the dedication of the temple. It states that Solomon kept the feast for 8 days, likely referring to the Feast of Tabernacles or Sukkot. This 8-day celebration was part of the dedication ceremony for the newly built temple in Jerusalem. Verse 9. This verse transitions to discussing records or accounts of Nehemiah. It mentions that these records described how Nehemiah founded a library and collected books about the kings and prophets, as well as the writings of David. The verse also notes that Nehemiah collected letters from kings concerning votive offerings. These were likely official documents or correspondences related to gifts or dedications made to the temple by foreign rulers. These verses serve several purposes in the larger narrative. 1. They continue to link important figures in Judean history, Solomon and Nehemiah, to the ongoing story, reinforcing the idea of a continuous tradition. 2. They highlight the importance of preserving historical and religious texts, which parallels Jeremiah's efforts to preserve sacred objects. 3. The mention of Nehemiah's library emphasizes the value placed on written records and learning in Judean culture. 4. The reference to letters about votive offerings suggests the international recognition and importance of the temple, even among foreign kings. Overall, these verses contribute to the theme of continuity in Judean religious and cultural practices, while also emphasizing the importance of preserving both physical objects and written records for future generations.